Might as well be trolling. All right, before I continue and hopefully finally finish the America Lost and Found, the BBS story box set. Hey, I didn't say America's this time. There's one thing I forgot to mention, so I better mention it now before I forget it again. The BBS films, and I think many, if not all, of the early New Hollywood films were shot primarily, if not entirely, on location with mobile, often handheld cameras. Head is kind of the outlier there. There are definitely scenes shot in sound stages and I think backlots. But if I recall correctly, it has been a little while since I saw the film, they tended to use those for their artificiality. I just marathoned this box shortly before I watched Valley of the Dolls. And if you remember in that video, I mentioned how it was shot on sound stages in a way that made them look like sound stages. I think that really stood out because I watched this. Actually, it also stands out a bit in the pilot movie for Night Gallery. The first segment, very obviously shot on sound stages and backlots, and the second one, well, one could argue was part of the New Hollywood movement, as it was the professional directorial debut of Steven Spielberg. Now, where did I leave off? It is interesting, the director of A Safe Place says that one problem was that his film was released right at the same week as BBS's next film. Number 549, The Last Picture Show, and I'm pretty sure you've heard about this film, even if you haven't seen it. They later made a sequel, Texasville, which I haven't seen. I guess I probably should. This film is shot in black and white. Apparently was just because at the time, black and white film had a wider depth of field. So things would stay in focus most of the time, which I still need to figure out how to do that on my one Canon camera. Although I kind of wonder, maybe that's just a sunk cost that I should abandon. Anyway, again, this is scored only through source music, except for the end credits. Mostly period music. It is set in the early 1950s in a dying Texas town. Again, it's been pointed out that the black and white photography helps make it look bleaker than it actually is. It's about three teens kind of living their lives, kind of looking for a place to belong. Once again, meandering but not plotless. There's one part which initially I thought, wait, why did that happen off screen? I think some characters go to Tijuana for the weekend, I think. And then they come back and they find out that Joe the Lion, the one person in town who was not tied to an oil company, owned several businesses, including the movie theater, has died. And then I realized, no, that needed to happen off screen. It's supposed to be abrupt. It's supposed to, what? We just leave for a few days and all this big change happens? I'm not doing a very good job of describing the plot. And Sybil Shepherd is nude in this film. This was also her acting debut. Hey, don't take my word for it. Take the word of the Oscars. The people who gave Crash the Best Picture over Brokeback Mountain. Okay, back then they weren't quite as crazy, but it won Best Supporting Actress for Cloris Leachman and Best Supporting Actor for Ben Johnson. It was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and received additional Best Supporting Actor and Actress nominations for Jeff Bridges and Ellen Burstyn. And I think it definitely deserved it. One interesting thing is all of these films are around the 90-minute mark, except for this one. This is 2 hours and 6 minutes, although this is the director's cut. I kind of wish we'd be able to see the original theatrical cut, just for comparison's sake. This is probably better. It certainly doesn't feel padded at all. If I understand correctly, when it was first released, it was 1 hour and 58 minutes in length. And at some point, they added one more minute, making it 1 hour and 59 minutes. I don't know if they pulled it and then put it back in circulation with that minute added, or if they gave it a second run immediately. But as I said, I'm curious what they've added, and I wish I could make a comparison. This includes two commentaries, one from _91 with director Peter Bogdanovich and several of the actors, a second one just featuring Bogdanovich, and of course documentaries. It even includes a 1972 interview with Francois Truffaut about the New Hollywood. Do I have any of his films? One thing about this film that it lacks compared to the other films in this box. This guy here, yeah, Jack Nicholson. This is the only one that does not involve Jack Nicholson in any way. But he is in the subsequent film from 1972, The King of Marvin Gardens. Jack Nicholson plays a radio monologist, monologist, not unlike Garrison Keillor, and he seems to have found a place where he belongs. He has got his radio show that he seems to enjoy. He lives with his father, and his father, I think they mostly get along, although he tells a story about how he let his father choke to death, and he comes home and his father's alive. Well, clearly he didn't choke to death, and his father's making fun of But his comfortable world is disrupted when his brother, who lives in Atlantic City, calls. He needs his help. He's got this idea about building a casino resort in Hawaii, I think, with Japanese funding. And the film is rather interesting. Marvin Gardens is one of the properties in Monopoly, which everything is named after Atlantic City. And you'll see this. There are a lot that really uses the sites of Atlantic City at the time, including they are the Miss America pageant areas, but since, it's not the Miss America pageant season, it's actually, again, a slice of history. At this point, Atlantic City was in decline. A few years later, it would be rejuvenated by legalized gambling. It's like several other movies. We get to see what a place looked like at the time in a way that a lot of other things don't show us. What else can I say about this? The DP is once again Laszlo Kovacs. There are some interviews, there's the trailer, there's a selective scene commentary. And it's not running throughout the thing, but certain scenes have a commentary, and there is a menu that allows you to select them. And this, once again, directed by Bob Rafelson. So, well, what else can I say here? That's the last film in this box set. But if you'll remember, they were supposed to do 6 films with Columbia after Easy Rider, and there was a 6th film, Hearts and Minds. It's not in this box set, I think, for 2 reasons. One was it was not released by Columbia. Columbia declined to release it, so BBS bought it back from Columbia, and it was released through, I believe, Warner Brothers. I think the other reason why it's not in this box set is because Criterion already released it 156. That's quite a bit less than 550. This is, oh boy, how to describe this. It's a documentary about the Vietnam War, a subject which I have neither the knowledge nor the time to really discuss here. I mean, it's not like I don't know anything, but I also know enough to know I don't know enough. Well, it is manipulative. I don't think it's actually inaccurate. One rather interesting thing is it does not have a narrator, unlike, well, almost every other documentary I've seen. I mean, well, maybe, I guess, does it count as narration if they're interviewing someone and then they continue the audio over some footage? For example, they have bomber pilots talking about how you don't see the civilians, and they continue the audio over footage of children or bombed out villages. And it's got some very, very powerful imagery. I mean, some of it is actually visually shocking. Like, they do show some children who were burnt by napalm, and they show a sequence which, well, I've certainly seen it. You may well have seen it as well, where an American soldier just shoots a Vietnamese civilian point blank in the head with a pistol. It falls down blood. But most of it, it's more, well, subtle might be pushing it, but for example, they show an American soldier setting fire to a house with a lighter. And while the people who presumably live in the house are just staring there, wondering where they're going to go now, what they're going to do now that they have no more home and no more farm. And like I said, it is manipulative. Oh, by the way, all of the quotes here are likely to be paraphrases. I do not have an eidetic memory. I didn't take extensive notes. For example, they show a funeral. A woman is trying to climb into the grave of her deceased loved one, and a child is looking at a picture of his dead relative. And then they show General Westmoreland, who I'm somewhat ashamed to say, a name I recognize mostly due to a not necessarily the news sketch, talking about how the Oriental doesn't place the same value on life that we do. Or they have this, well, they show a pregame sermon. I mean, actually a minister giving a sermon about winning or being, I don't know what it is. Pre-game prayers are weird enough. This is an actual pre-game sermon. And later on, I don't know if it's the same football team or not, but the coach is yelling at them and slapping the refs like, "Don't let them make us lose!" And they're, "Yeah!" Like, wait, you're riled up by that? You're agreeing with him? I mean, he slapped you! Slap him back! Grab your helmet and bludgeon him with it! I'm not really a sports guy. Then they show him getting out in the field, and the cheerleaders there, "Fight! Fight!" And then they cut to LBJ saying, "I don't want anyone leaving this room believing that we can't win." Native American veteran remarking on how strange it seems now that despite being called racial slurs all his life, even at boot camp, he thought nothing of referring to the Vietnamese with racial slurs while he was over there. So much to mention here. I should point out here, it's a saddle-stitched booklet with several essays, including some things putting the movie more in the proper historical context. I should point out this was released in 1974. The interviews were conducted in 72 and 73, and the U.S. pulled out in 73. So I think the majority of the interviews and footage and so forth were done while the U.S. still had a physical presence in Vietnam. So much more I could talk about, but I think it might be better if you see it for yourself. It's a dual release. We have everything on one Blu-ray and on 2 DVDs, and it's quite a bit. There is a commentary by the director, arguably providing us with the narration that we didn't have before. There are nearly 2.5 hours of cut scenes, well, specifically 2 hours, 27 minutes, 24 seconds. And, well, it's quite a bit of stuff here. There's so many more moments I could mention, but it might be better to just watch it. So now, will I ever get to 1,000? I think so, but there's stuff I have to do. One thing is I want to make a list of everything that's on here because they don't have one in the book. Yeah, it comes with a book. Well, I guess I'll tell you about that later, but one thing the book doesn't mention is what exactly is on each disc. Since I started this, I've gotten some additional discs, and I really would like to at least watch some of these things and catch up so that maybe eventually I can reach 1,000 and actually reach the end of what I have before then slowly doing supplemental videos. That's it for now. And at least I'll have an excuse to watch stuff. As I've said multiple times, sometimes the problem with having so much available is you don't know what to watch next. It's hard to see that. Wait, there we go.